The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
He basically said divorce wasn't an option. He got on top of her, and that's when I first saw him stabbing her with a knife.
Did you love your wife?
Very much.
Did you ever create any sort of a plan with Juliana?
No, there was no plan. That is absolutely crazy.
We've got two clashing stories from the defendant and the au pair. So who's telling the truth? Day 2 of jury deliberations soon gets underway in the au pair affair murder trial. Plus, lost in all the drama, the forgotten victim, Joseph Ryan. We're taking a closer look at the man caught in the middle. Plus, from convicted mastermind to fighting for a new trial, Charlie Adelson heads back to court, and we're spotlighting his appeal. And we're talking about Luigi Mangioni's next move. What will it be now with the death penalty off the table? We'll talk about how that big ruling will tip the scales of justice. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. I missed you over the weekend, my friends. I hope it was a great one for you. We got a great show planned for you, so let's get it started as we always do. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. What's taking so long? I thought the jury in the au pair affair murder trial would have made a decision on Friday. That is, after somebody put out the fire on the defendant's pants. His story about how the homicides went down sounded not only contrived, but quite frankly, absurd. I thought the jury wouldn't be wrestling with their decision, but obviously they are. So why? I think it's because of the excellent job that Mr. Taxman's attorney did. His attorney is smooth as silk. He is polished, he's professional, intelligent, and obviously very experienced. After the trial's over, I have to tell you, I would be delighted to have him as a guest analyst on this show because he's that good. Now, it was no accident that he kept his digital forensic examiner up on that stand for days. And he did a masterful job casting doubt on the digital aspects of the case. So much so that even the prosecution had to acknowledge that nobody can know for sure who was behind the FetLife account purportedly belonging to Christine Banfield. And I bet that is what the jury is stuck on. My friends, I have to say this was a very well-tried case on both sides. And my heart breaks for the loved ones of both of those victims, Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan. And I just hope and pray that the truth will prevail with the jury's verdict. That's my opening statement this Monday. Let me know if you like it. Right now, time for your daily docket.
Okay, in the Common Pleas Court of Clark County, Ohio, State of Ohio, plaintiff versus William Brock, defendant, case number 24CR0278, verdict form count 1. We, the jury, being duly impaneled and sworn, do find the defendant, William Brock, guilty of the murder of Lolitha Hall.
In Ohio, we've got the sentencing of William Brock set for 10 a.m. Eastern. He was convicted of murdering Lolitha Hall, who was an Uber driver that Brock thought was trying to rob him. We're going to take you live in there once the hearing gets underway. In New Jersey, we've got the state's case continuing in the Mansions murder trial for defendant Paul Canero. Court's going to start up at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And in Utah, we've got defendant Corey Richens with a motions hearing at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Right now, we turn to your top story this Monday, as defendant Brendan Banfield's fate is now in the hands of the jury. So whose side of the story do you believe? And who do you think the jury believes? They heard two versions of events. Here's what both co-defendants had to say.
So he didn't want to get divorced. Did he tell you what he wanted to do?
Yes.
What did he say?
He mentioned his plan to get rid of her.
Did you ever create any sort of a plan with Juliana?
No, there was no plan. I think that it's an absurd line of questioning for something that is not serious, that a plan was made to get rid of my wife. That is absolutely crazy.
I was able to see him stabbing her.
It appeared that he did a very forceful stab towards Christine. I saw him do a downward stabbing stroke, and that's when I fired at him.
So who's telling the truth? Let's talk about it. Let's bring in our legal eagles. So happy to have on the program attorneys Mario Gallucci and Tommy Pope. Good morning to you, gentlemen. All right, so is the au pair credible? And is she more credible than Mr. Taxman? Tommy Pope, you start us off.
I think the biggest break in her credibility is the fact that she had a deal. I went back and read it because I couldn't understand the manslaughter. So as I understand it, she was charged with shooting the fellow that came supposedly from the FetLife account. The interesting thing to me is if what he's saying is true, if the husband's saying is true, why would the FetLife guy stab her if it was all play acting and it was just for a sexual fetish opportunity? Why is the deceased guy stabbing her? I think when he took the stand, I think Banfield actually probably hurt himself. I think he thinks he's smarter than he is, and I think the jury is struggling with some of the pieces because of the well-tried case. But I think ultimately he lacks credibility.
Yes. Tommy Pope, I hope the jury is asking the question you just raised on this program about why would Joseph Ryan want to do a murder? He went there looking for a sex fantasy to play that out. And there's all the receipts that we have seen. But in nowhere in any of the messages did he say anything about murdering her as part of this. Great question. I've got another clip for you both. Let's take a look.
Do you recall the name of the profile that the defendant created for the FetLife account?
Anastasia Knight.
And was there a photograph added to that profile?
Yes.
Who is the photograph of?
It's Christine's body in a bathing suit.
There was none of the suspect email account. There was no FetLife account. There was no Telegram messages. None of that existed at the point that we went to the range. I did not know about them until after Christine died.
That's his story. Mario, what do you think about Mr. Taxman?
So I agree with Tommy. I think they both have credibility issues, although all of her testimony is basically corroborated by the other evidence. I mean, the blood evidence corroborates the story of him being over her when she's stabbed. The alibi that he used, that he had a meeting with his boss, and his boss testified that no such meeting existed, and had a meeting existed, he would have never been dressed the way he was dressed. It was unprofessional. So there are many, many, many holes in Banfield's story. In addition to that, just look at the way he's testifying. I mean, this is his wife, the mother of his child, and he seems pretty just matter of fact, not very not a tremendous amount of emotion. His eye contact is a little wonky. So I think she gets the nod here as far as testimony is concerned.
Yes, Mario, agreed. And let's talk a little bit more about Miss Au Pair here for a second, because I think a lot of people, myself included, don't necessarily agree with what the Commonwealth has agreed to recommend for her testimony. We know that she's going to be sentenced on February 13th is the date, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, and she's been promised a recommendation from the Commonwealth of time served, credit for time served, essentially what she did in jail, she gets credit for, and then she gets to go home shortly after the sentencing hearing concludes. She could look at up to 10 years by law, and Tommy and Mario, you both know this, and Tommy, I'll go to you on this point. You both know that the judge doesn't have to follow that recommendation. Tommy, what do you think the judge may do?
You know, Julie, I've had over the years cases like that, not necessarily murder cases, but cases where you had someone that was from another country that was here. More often than not, my cases were illegal, but there were times you would probably give a lesser sentence just to get them out of the country. And so I know it's kind of strange in this backdrop of ICE that we have going on now, but back then, really, it was just kind of a resources issue. In other words, why house somebody here that you can just be done with? And so there may be some of that at play there. So it's not necessarily unusual. I think it'll be interesting. It'll be according to what the jury comes back on Banfield, maybe how the judge looks at that. But again, you know, what we always called it reducing exposure as opposed to, you know, necessarily making a recommendation, particularly when you have a testifying witness, Julie, for the very reasons we just said. It can weaken the weaken the witness's testimony if you're giving them too sweet a deal. So I think the prosecution had to kind of dance around that some.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, you know, so maybe deportation factored in here for her. She's not an American citizen, and so perhaps, you know, Tommy, thank you for that insight. Mario, tell me your thoughts on this judge. We know she's a Marine, very well respected. She's the chief judge in this circuit, a very seasoned, no nonsense. I'm just wondering if she might, you know, maybe because she's disgusted at the conduct, say, you know, you're going to do some time here before we send you back home. What do you think?
So generally, when you have an agreement like this with the prosecution, they tell the judge in advance, you know, the defense is going to find out that there's a plea agreement, that she's going to testify. And if she testifies, this is what the promise is. So the judge is aware of that. And for the most part, a judge will telegraph to you whether or not they're going to agree or disagree with the sentence. You know, I've been in a position in cases where a judge looks and says, you know, time served, you know, this is a murder, a conspiracy to commit murder, and I don't necessarily know if I can do that. Let me look at all the facts. Let me see what happens in the trial. That would be what would be telegraphed, and I've seen nothing of that like. Although she's a strict judge and she's very good, her rulings are very, very good. So I think she'll probably go along with the promise no matter what.
Okay. And I think we have time for maybe one more question here in terms of the believability of Mr. Taxman. Tommy Pope, when he was up there over 2 days, was there anything that he said that you thought, oh, I do find this part of this believable, or did you think it was all just very contrived lies?
You know, they wouldn't believe it. Mario's not going to believe this of a prosecutor, but I always tried to see both sides and say, if he's telling the truth, you know, then this. And I just, there's something, like Mario said, that there's a disaffect here. You know, he loves his wife, but he cheats on her all the time. You know, he just, again, he's got that little flavor that, you know, I mean, even back to calling himself an officer, no disrespect to our IRS agents, but you know, you would think he's on the front lines of ICE or something, the way he's
right,
putting himself out there.
Right.
And I just think he doesn't have credibility, and I think the jury's going to see that.
Right. You know, I'm glad you said that, Tom. You've served in law enforcement. You were a SLED agent. You know, big difference. You know, this guy is not going into, you know, dangerous SWAT situations and not, you know, he's not going undercover. Yeah, I mean, he might have a badge and have a duty weapon issued to him, but I'd like to see what he'd do under that pressure. We're going to leave it here for now and going to start up that verdict clock as soon as the jury's back. Tommy, Mario, stand by, please. Friends at home, don't go anywhere except maybe to get some more coffee, because when we come back, we're going to take a closer look at the forgotten victim.
Did he say why he picked Joe after interacting with him on FetLife?
It was mostly because he made Brendan feel confident enough that he would be the person to play the role that needed the person to play.
The man caught in the middle. This is him, Joseph Ryan. Who was he? We're going to hear from his mom this morning. Plus, Charlie Adelson heading back to court. That's right, he is fighting for a new trial. That's coming up later in the show.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Why did you shoot Joe Ryan on February 24th?
He was attacking Christine. I mean, he was stabbing her. I mean, I wish I shot him earlier.
We want to remember the second victim in this case, Joseph Ryan. And, you know, unfortunately, my friends, we don't have a lot of information about him. I want to show you the only picture we have of him, sadly. This was shared by NBC4 in Washington, D.C. This is the photo. And the question is, who was Joseph Ryan? You know, prosecutors have told us that he was on the FetLife account communicating with somebody that he only knew as Anastasia. And those communications have come in, and we know that he was looking for rough sex play with another consenting adult. We know that much. But prosecutors are restricted with what they can share with the jury about victims. There are rules with it. That's why, as you've seen here on Court TV, we learn a lot more at the time of sentencing. We did get a little bit through his mother, an interview that we saw done by WUSA television station. Let's take a look at that.
I remember when I got the call from the detective. He called me and he told me that my son had been killed. And I just know when he told me that I could hear my own voice screaming.
It had to have been so awful for his mother, his whole family, grieving. And I'm sure the grieving's never going to end for them. They have suffered an unspeakable loss. So senseless, right? You know, if you believe the Commonwealth's theory, you know, that this is an innocent man who thought he was doing something consensual with another adult and then gets literally caught in the crossfire, right? Literally, you know, because he's not part of this family or the love triangle going on. It's really infuriating. Let's bring back in attorney Tommy Pope for some analysis now. Tommy, you're the perfect person to speak to about how prosecutors, you know, wish they could put in a lot about their victims, but unfortunately the court rules restrict that. Would you speak to that and how that can be, you know, challenging, please?
Sure. You know, the time when we see more about the character of the victims is normally a death penalty case. But the difference in a death penalty case, it's called a bifurcated or two-part case. The first part's guilt. So you're just focused on guilt, so none of that comes in. And then you'll see in the second half oftentimes, and this may help your jurors understand why they see it sometimes they don't. In the second half, you have what's called pain testimony. Ironically, it's Payne versus Tennessee, P-A-Y-N-E, but we always thought of it as Payne, P-A-I-N, like what the family went through, what the person was like, the character of the person that was killed, the character of the person that did the killing. But, you know, in this circumstance, they're very limited. And the tough thing for me, I was thinking, and you said it several times, regardless how you feel about the fetish thing or anything else, it was two consenting adults not committing any crimes. If what purported to be was actually true. And so it's almost like this man, Joseph Ryan, is villainized because you kind of got parked in your mind, Julie, that he's a rapist. But he wasn't. But, you know, that's the tough thing. The juror, he really, I hope his family, you know, that we do see a verdict. And I hope his family does get the opportunity to be heard. And, you know, he may not have been perfect, just like the rest of us, but he was not a rapist. He got lured into this scenario for, unfortunately, all the wrong reasons.
Right. You're exactly right, Tommy. I want to bring in Mario Gallucci now to talk a little bit about this plan and just how sinister this was. Mario, I have a clip for you. This is from the prosecution's closing argument.
We know that on February 24th, 2023, he executed his plan to murder his wife and an innocent stranger. He was in love with Juliana. He can pretend that this was a fling, an affair, he'd had them before, no big deal. He was in love with Juliana. He was afraid of losing her. He needed to get rid of his wife.
Okay, the language there, an innocent stranger. Let's key in on that. Mario, when you think about this, we know that this man is in love with this au pair, and there's been plenty of evidence to substantiate him wanting to be with her, get rid of the situation that he was under. And so the allegation, as you know, is that he devised this plan to murder his wife, to remove her from their lives. This innocent man, what it takes to kill a stranger, if Brendan Banfield did do this, you know, as much as he may have animosity toward his wife or no longer want to be with his wife, but if it's true that he also didn't care that another life, a human life, was going to be lost, I think it's like we need to stop back and just step back and think about that, how awful that is. Mario, your thoughts about this victim, you know, kind of being forgotten in all this, and he shouldn't be.
So Brendan Banfield shows a total disregard for human life. Not only is he planning to kill his wife, the mother of his daughter, but he has no problem whatsoever setting up a plan that he knows is going to eliminate another person that he's never met, never had contact with. To him, it was just collateral damage. And it really is upsetting when you see a person go to that type of plan and literally execute another person just so he can be with, you know, somebody he loves. It really demonstrates to me a lack of any emotion and a total disregard of human life. It's really troubling and upsetting that anybody could think the way that he thought.
Yes, you said that perfectly, Mario. Thank you for that. Let's listen back to Brendan Banfield and the way he described his encounter with Joseph Ryan.
After he said you dropped the gun, what did you say?
I repeated to drop the knife and to let her go.
And did he say anything to you?
He did. He told me that she was hers, that she was hers, and that she gave herself to me. And Christine kind of yelled, moaned at this point.
Did he mean to say she was his? Did he get tripped up in his lie there? Tommy, what do you say?
Yeah, I think he's stumbling and fumbling, and he's not getting toward the goal line, I don't think. Just tying into what Mario said, I mean, I think it's pure selfishness. You know, you've heard me say that on some other cases. I mean, he was so focused on what he wanted that, you know, the collateral damage Mario was talking about, he's selfish, and now he's going to try to lie his way out of it. You know, juries can do some strange things. I would be very surprised if they don't convict him. It would be a miscarriage if they do not.
Yes, you're so right. Great insight from you both. Thank you. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements.
Did you cause the death of Professor Dan Markell?
Absolutely no.
Did you hire anyone to kill him?
No.
He's back. Convicted killer Charlie Adelson returns to the courtroom. We'll talk about it next. Plus, Luigi Mangione dodging the death penalty. So what's next for the accused assassin?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
The state of Florida versus Charles Adelson, case number 2016 CF 3036B, verdict. Count 1. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
In our spotlight this morning, Charlie Adelson is getting ready to go back to court. His attorney's preparing for an appeal. They're requesting a new trial for him. As you know, he's one of 5 people convicted in the murder-for-hire plot to kill his ex-brother-in-law, Dan Markel. The appellate court agreed to hear the oral arguments tomorrow morning. Adelson has always maintained his innocence.
Charlie, I'm going to ask you again. Did you have anything to do with the murder of Professor Dan Markel?
Absolutely not.
Were you a principal in his first-degree murder?
Absolutely not.
Did you conspire in any way to murder him?
Absolutely not.
Did you solicit anyone to murder him?
Never.
His attorney's biggest issue is that the judge refused to move the trial out of Tallahassee, citing extensive pretrial publicity surrounding Markel's murder. So, my friends, will find out together if that argument will lead to a new trial for the convicted killer. But in the meantime, let's talk more about him. Here to help us out with that, let's welcome in the co-host of the Surviving the Survivor podcast, Joel Waldman. Joel, good morning to you. Tell us, please, what we can expect tomorrow.
Sure. Great to be with you. Good morning, Julie, and all of your viewers. So tomorrow, I think the hearing is actually set for 1 p.m. It is going to be in the First District Court of Appeals in the great state of Florida. There'll be a panel of 3 judges, and each side gets 20 minutes. So for the government, it will actually be lawyers for the state attorney general's office, which is a little different than the state attorney's office for that particular district. As some people may know, it has been Georgia Kappelman prosecuting the case, the lead prosecutor, Jack Campbell, the state attorney. But here you've got the Florida AG's office. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy named Michael Ufferman. And here in Florida, he is regarded as, if not the best appellate attorney in the entire state, among the best. And again, it is very tight and very quick. Each side will get 20 minutes to present their arguments. And those 20 minutes generally include questions. So they sort of have to anticipate stopping a touch early for questions from the 3-panel judges that are assembled there. And they will ask them and pepper them with questions. And based on the questions, we will have some idea probably of how this is going, with a ruling to follow probably about 45 days after the fact.
Oh, Joel, lots of interesting things you shared there. So backing up a little bit, any idea why the Attorney General's office is leading this now?
They're just the ones that handle the appellate issues, from my understanding. It's kind of standard operating procedure. There's no particular reason for it. It's just that, the state attorney's office is too small to handle everything. So generally, the Florida Attorney General's office will pick this up. And Julie, as you mentioned, really the issue here are constitutional rights for Charlie and whether they were violated or not. Specifically, the main argument will be, why didn't Judge Stephen Everett, who presided over the case, allow for a venue change? But I can tell you, in the last 40 years, I believe there's been one venue change in Leon County. So it is very rare, and they properly, according to all accounts, voir dired the jury veneer, and apparently all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed here.
And this is helpful, Joel. So Leon County, encompassing Tallahassee, where we know Dan Markel lived, loved it, beloved professor there for many years, really involved in making a difference in that community. And the Adelsons loved Miami, where Wendy grew up, and that was what the fight was about. And so ideally, Charlie wanted this trial to take place in South Florida. And it was a no-go on that. And so that's the big fight here. Your thoughts on this argument that there was too much pretrial publicity in Tallahassee? Do you think that argument holds water, Joel?
I really don't. Tallahassee, people don't realize it. Some people think it's a very small town. There's over 200,000 people that live there. It's also the most educated city in Florida because the capital's there. You've got Florida State University, and I'm talking in terms of they base that on college degrees. But I can tell you firsthand, that my partner at Surviving the Survivor and myself on many occasions would just stop into stores while we were up in Tallahassee and ask people, hey, what do you think of the trial? And I don't know, at least half the time people would say, what are you talking about? What trial? So not everyone is into true crime the way people on Court TV are, the way you and I are. And I really don't think that it was a problem finding a fair and impartial jury, but they're going to make the exact opposite argument, and we'll see what the panel of judges has to say. But it is going to be an uphill battle for them, no doubt.
Right, Joel. Let's go back. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? Let's look at a little bit of the cross-examination of Charlie Adelson when he testified in his own defense. Let's talk about when he said that Wendy was not driving to the crime scene. We've got that clip on the cross. Here we go.
Can we agree that she obviously knew something about this crime?
She found out when she came to court. I never told her anything.
I'm talking about the murder of Dan Markell. She knew something, right? I mean, it's not a coincidence she went to the crime scene, is it?
You're talking about the route that she took that day?
I'm talking about her pulling up to the crime scene tape.
She never went to the crime scene. She was going to buy a bottle of liquor that coincidentally the person sent her a stop at the bar party buy a bottle of Bullet bourbon that she was going to pick up. She wasn't driving to a crime scene.
Just went to the liquor store right by the crime scene. Joel, do you think we may see any arrests after this hearing tomorrow concludes?
Well, I got to tell you, Julie, the number one question from people who watch Surviving the Survivor is, when is Wendy getting arrested? I wish I had an answer. We did speak to family, directly to Ruth Markell on Friday, and we've spoken to other people. And, you know, it's been quiet for a really long time, but in speaking to a bunch of different people, the consensus is that maybe something happens after the appeal. Maybe they're waiting for some sort of response to see how Charlie's trial will be handled moving forward, if at all. And very likely it won't be. There's a very good chance Charlie is going to just remain in prison. I mean, the betting odds put it at like a 5% chance, because I have asked attorneys, of him actually getting an appeal. So once this is squared away, the thought process is we might get news on both Harvey and Wendy, because keep in mind, Harvey's name came up as well, with some cash moving around, potentially paying some people in the county jail while Donna was being housed there awaiting trial. So both Wendy and her father, Harvey, are still very much in the crosshairs. And look, this happened 14 years ago, now 15 years ago, I believe. 15 years ago. I'm sorry, 11 years ago. I'm confusing with the Ellen Greenberg case. I'm sorry, 11 years ago. And it's a long time either way, whether it's 11 or 14, but over a decade ago. And the prosecutors here have been extremely meticulous in how they are approaching the cases. So I don't think, from September when Donna was convicted to now is that much time. We all live in a world of instant, gratification. But I think we need to be patient. And I have no doubt that justice has not been fully served yet.
We know the Markells certainly think so. And Joel, definitely go back and check out your interview with Ruth Markell, Danny's mom. I'm sure you asked this. I would love for our viewers to hear it now. Have they made any progress in getting to see their grandkids, the boys that belong to their son?
It's a really uphill battle for them. For those who don't know, the Markells, if there's any silver lining in this, they got some Grandparent Alienation Act, the Markell Act, passed in the state of Florida, because this happens to a lot of people when there are crimes committed or just issues within the family. A lot of times grandparents are alienated, and that is what has happened with Ruth and Phil Markell, the grandparents here in this case. Wendy Adelson makes it incredibly difficult for them to see the boys. It's extremely challenging. The short answer, it's been a while since they've seen them, and just to get to see them again, they have to jump these massive legal hurdles every time, and hurdles involving Wendy just allowing permission for the grandparents to see them. And really, it breaks my heart, because both Phil and Ruth, all they want to do is love their grandchildren. It's a simple request, and it is often denied.
They're such lovely people. I know, Joel, it's heartbreaking. We wish the Markells every good wish going forward in this fight to be with those kids and to see them. Joel Waldman, always a pleasure to see you. Next time you come on the show, we'll talk about the Ellen Greenberg case and others. Thank you much.
I'd love to do that.
See you soon.
Thank you.
We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements.
What's your name? Mark. What is it? Mark? Mark? Yes, sir. Mark what? Rosario. Someone called tonight. They thought you were suspicious.
Luigi Mangione no longer looking at the death penalty. So how will that ruling tip the scales of justice? We're talking about the two prosecutions next.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Breaking news, a concerning development for a former Court TV alum. The mother of NBC's Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie has been reported missing in Arizona. That's according to the Pima County Sheriff. You're looking at the missing persons flyer. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie was last seen Saturday night in her home just outside of Tucson, Arizona. She was reported missing by family on Sunday. The sheriff says that Miss Guthrie is not in good physical condition, but that the family has not reported any cognitive issues. Foul play has also not been ruled out. Savannah Guthrie worked as a national trial correspondent for Court TV from 2004 until 2007. Guthrie issued a statement saying, quote, "On behalf of our family, I want to thank everyone for the thoughts, prayers, and messages of support. Right now, our focus remains on the safe return of our dear mom." Our best wishes go out to Savannah and her family, and of course, we'll continue bringing you any new developments here on Court TV. The death penalty is off the table for defendant Luigi Mangione as a federal judge dismisses 2 of the 4 counts against him. So how will that tip the scales of justice? The judge's ruling really a blow to prosecutors who have been pushing for the death penalty. The judge saying she based her decision on an interpretation of the law, which requires that the killing be committed during another crime of violence. Mangione is accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside of a Manhattan hotel, and he's still facing a murder charge in state court in New York. So will this federal death penalty ruling affect which trial goes first? Let's talk about it all. Let's bring in somebody who practices in state and federal court in New York City, Mario Gallucci. All right, Mario, let's start first with the judge's ruling. Right ruling? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely the right ruling. I mean, in the federal system, you need to have committed 2 acts of violence at the same time in order for you to get the death penalty. In this case, you know, there was 1 act of violence, and that was, you know, the murder of the executive. So it was absolutely the right ruling. And by the way, New York State also has the same law. In order for it to be a murder 1, you either have to, you know, kill law enforcement, or it has to be 2 acts of violence, meaning, you know, at the same time, you've committed, you know, 2 acts of violence. I've tried many double murder cases, and those are always murder 1. So the New York State and the federal system are almost identical to each other.
Oh, that's interesting to note. Mario, thank you for that. So looking at how we've got 2 trials on the docket, we understand the state case supposed to go in July, the federal case in the fall, I believe, in September. We know the Agnifilos, Karen and Mark Agnifilo, who you know, colleagues of yours. Mark, many of our viewers will remember, represented Sean Combs, who's lead counsel on that case. His wife is lead counsel for Luigi Mangione. They said that the July state court trial date is too soon. Karen Agnifilo issued this statement. Mario, I want to show it to you. She said, quote, "As a practical matter, Mr. Mangione's defense team will require the remainder of the year to prepare for that trial. We will respond to the court about this unrealistic request in the coming days." Mario, what do you think about that? Do they need a whole year to get ready to go?
So no, they have 7 months to get this up and running. The real reason they want to do that is if they could do the federal trial first. New York State Constitution, although it adopted the dual sovereignty doctrine, the constitutional restrictions in New York State are a lot stricter than the federal constrictions. So if he were to be convicted in federal court on this murder, it's very, very unlikely that he could be tried in the state court because of double jeopardy. However, if the state court were to go first, then there would be no double sovereignty issue, because the way the federal prosecution is proceeding is he brought a gun across state lines, he was stalking, and then he committed the murder. So although double jeopardy applies to the same offenses, it doesn't apply to the same conduct. So if the state case goes first, he could be tried federally. If the federal case goes first, it will be very unlikely that the state case could proceed. And that's what the Ignifolos are trying to do. If they could delay that state case, then there's a good opportunity that there won't be a state case if he's convicted federally.
And this is exactly why we wanted you to do this segment this morning, Mario Gallucci. Okay, so the judge, do you think she can be convinced by the defense to kick back that state court date so that the federal trial goes first?
So I know we have a meeting I think it's this week, where they asked for a court appearance in the state proceeding in front of I think it's Judge Caro, who I've tried a case in front of. He is more than likely, I don't think he's going to be persuaded very much, because 7 months to get this up and running is not really that difficult a task. I would be more concerned about the federal trial that's scheduled in September. So if you start the state trial in July, and that trial lasts 6 to 7 weeks, how much time are you now going to have to get up and ready to start a federal case? So I would be more concerned about the timing of the federal case than the state case. And I think that they would have a better opportunity to argue that if the state case goes into August, and now you're picking a jury in September in federal court, I think that the federal judge would be more than likely to give them an extension of time.
Interesting. Okay, Mario, boy, these are good things for us to watch for. So we'll watch for what the two judges decide here for their dockets, and then now we'll see what the Ignifolos do next. Mario, any predictions? Oh, quickly, we got about 20 seconds. Anything you think they're going to do, their next move for their client?
They're going to do anything they can to delay that state case, and that's why we got a court appearance this week. I mean, that's the behind the scenes. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, getting ready to go back to state court. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. We'll definitely be reporting on it when the hearing rolls around. Mario Gallucci, speaking of getting off to court, that's where we need to let you go. Thank you so much for making time for opening statements this morning. We'll see you soon, my friend. And friends at home, we thank you so much for being with us this Monday morning. We got lots more straight ahead. If you like today's episode, watch it again, share it, tell your friends about it. We're here for them every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.